demo for this truffle salt.
Straight hustling.
Literally every single day. And then we would sell truffles on the days we were not in the stores.
Yeah.
And so we eventually in February, at the end of February, we got the phone call from one of the regional presidents, and we got the green light to go into the rest of the stores. At this stage, we're at about 100. The goal is to get into 500.
Yeah.
And so it's for the truffle salt, truffle honey. And again, we think this is like our holy grail, right? We're like, we have found the scalable answer to this business. And we get that green light, and we get ready to go into all these stores. And to get ready for something like this, like, you got to think, like, you have no idea what they're going to sell, right? And if you need... So if you're selling the Whole Foods, you need cases, right? To get 6-pack cases made, right, you have to buy 10 to 20,000 at a time, right? The first time you get it made, each case is like around like $2, right? So we go from a business, right, we don't have any money, and now we need to figure out how to get, around $100,000 together. And so at some point we had brought in a little bit of investment, and then when we needed some money to launch in Whole Foods, Mitch came out and we did a presentation for Mitch.
Yeah.
And Mitch put $100,000 into the company for us to launch at Whole Foods. And so, just to speak to that, like, literally we went from cooking for Mitch, cooking the food that he was eating on the table, to sitting at the same table with him.
Yeah.
And that just speaks to the level of character of who him and his wife are. And so, I mean, literally, they came here. Yeah. They flew their private jet to Oakland. Yeah. Got a rental car, drove to the neighborhood that we're in right here, which is not a nice neighborhood. Yeah. Right? And literally, we're like, hey, Mitch, you want us to move our car out so you can put your car in? And he's like, no, this is a rental. If they steal this, that's okay, but don't let them steal your car, right? Yeah. Like, that was his thought process. He's like, they can steal this rental, but no, keep your car in the gate. And so he comes in here, and literally we put this presentation together for him on what we're going to do when we launch in Whole Foods. And he agrees to invest, and he puts up the money for us to launch in Whole Foods. And so when we're getting ready for this launch, right, we get everything needed to go into 500 stores as we're growing the fresh truffle business. Yeah. And as we all know now, at some point, COVID hit, right? And when I say COVID hit, I'm really talking about the day that the shelter-in-place, when everyone started getting the shelter-in-place alerts on their phone.
Was it March 13th?
Yeah.
Something like that.
And Friday the first one was Santa Clara County, which is right here. Yeah. And I did not even know that was a thing. Yeah. I maybe I should have. I don't know. I literally didn't know shelter in place was. I did not know you could just make people stay home.
Well, I had no idea either. I mean, up until this time, when have we ever experienced that?
Right.
Ever.
And I mean, it's such a nice name too. Shelter in place.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it seems like a vacation.
Like, right? They don't call it lockdown because that's what it is. Yeah.
Like a spa or something you go to.
People would have started rioting a lot faster if they called it lockdown.
Yeah, for sure. And
so when that happens, then all the restaurants shut down. Yeah. Whole Foods pauses the rollout. And me and Tyler had to do this little calculation that we always do. Basically, to figure out our working capital. And you take your accounts receivable plus all the cash in the bank minus what you owe in either accounts payable or the credit card. Yeah. And then that will either give you a negative or a positive number. And if it gives you a negative number, then you need to figure out how to sell whatever you have lying around to make that number positive. Uh-huh. Or if it is positive, then you're good, right? And when we did that calculation, we were negative $60,000.
Oh, my God.
And that was including accounts receivable. Yeah. Right? Now, no restaurant is about to pay us. Hell no. So you take accounts receivable out of the equation, and we're just not in a good place.
The juice, yeah.
And we look at this, and the next day I get a phone call from Leah, and she's now in charge of all of our private events, right? Okay. Literally, she's done over $2 million in sales in private events.
Whoa.
Right? And she calls and says that her husband, who runs two incredible restaurants, you know, and she's told me that I can share this, that he just got laid off and they cut his salary.
Yeah.
And so she asked me, she's like, I just need to know, am I going to get furloughed?
Yeah.
And I was like, Leah, we will make a commitment to not furlough anybody. And we had like some like contract workers with us.
Yeah.
But then Whole Foods paused all the demos, you know, so we couldn't even. There's no way we could even keep them working, right?
Yeah.
And so we made a commitment to not furlough any of our employees, any of the team members, right? And so here we are, negative.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's no viable sales options. Restaurants aren't buying truffles, and even if they think they are, they don't have the money to pay for them.
Exactly.
You know, and then Whole Foods, and then even if Whole Foods were to take on all that product, the sales projections, like who is like people are killing each other for toilet paper. You know, like who is worried about
truffle salt? Yeah.
Exactly. And so here we are as a business, and for about 3 days, honestly, I kept replaying the scene in Blow, and when I say replay, I mean like constantly, you know, like going back to how you talk to yourself, right?
Yeah.
I kept replaying the scene of the kid at the dinner table and his parents arguing about money, right?
Yeah.
And then him working so hard, right, to like fix that wrong in his life.
Yeah.
And then getting to a point where that movie ends with him arguing with his wife about money while their kid is at the dinner table.
Yeah.
And I kept playing this like amnesia scene in my head, and I felt like my dad. I felt like I had grown this business. I was a little too far on the edge, and then we got hit with something, just like when 2008 hit. We got hit with this pandemic, and I thought I was going to lose this business. And so I 100% was angry and terrified. And we had, a couple days in there, and then Mitch comes back out, and we do a presentation for Mitch, right, on what we did with Whole Foods, right?
Yeah.
And we had done every single thing that we said we would do. We hit these sales numbers, we put these teams in place, we launched these products, we got this organized, and Mitch literally looked at me and he said, well, what are we doing here? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, are you raising money or not? And I was like, Mitch, if you're interested in putting more money in this company, we are raising money.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, how much of this company will I own if I put in another $100,000 today? And we're sitting right here, and it's me, Tyler's stepdad, Bob, was our legal counsel, Mitch, Alice, and then Sarah and Ian, right? And you could just feel the animosity in the air.
Yeah.
And we write it out on paper, and we're like, you'll own, came out to like 13%. And at this stage, a lot of people I honestly think a lot of people I think a lot of people don't understand equity enough to understand the value of partners.
Yeah.
You know? And Mitch is a guy who I will always take as a partner in my business.
Yeah.
And it's 13%, and I had heard Mitch a time before say that he likes to have 15% in companies. And so, in that moment, I was like, Mitch, another $100,000 will get you this much. Would you like to own 15% of Truffle Shuffle? And he says, yes, I would. How much do I have to write? Tell me how much I have to write on a check to own 15% of Truffle Shuffle today. Yeah. Because in this moment, I'm doing this calculation. All right, if we're $60,000 in the hole, we have 6 people on the team. $60,000 is going to get us, 2.5 months. We're in a pandemic. We're still going to be in the same exact position in 2.5 months. Yeah. And so I was like, we need just a little bit more money because you need some money to figure something out. Yeah. Right. And so it came out to $137,000. and he wrote us a check for $137,000 the day the stock market crashed in the middle of a pandemic for a business that was 80% to restaurants when every single restaurant in America was closed.
Whoa.
And that is belief.
Yeah. That is hope. That is, yeah.
And after that moment, we made a decision, you know, I don't know what you want to call it, not to get like religious or anything, but like a commitment, right, to one day write Mitch a check back. That there would be no way that we would ever lose this money, and that we will figure out a way to make sure we write him a check back. And the next day, we get a phone call from the Battery asking if we want to do a virtual cooking class for their top members. And that was a phone call that completely changed it for our business.
Yeah.
And so
I remember you guys were like, hey, we're doing this video. You want to come do an intro?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'll come do an intro. It's a pandemic, baby. Ain't nobody working. I'm fine.
We had. What did you call yourself at that time?
I think I was just rolling with Sucio at that time.
I think it was either Sucio or David Sucio.
Yeah, something like that. But I remember you guys were like, it was a whole setup, man. It was the whole production. I remember we're like, okay, we got to do this, we got to do that. And then I remember also that I had no idea what it was for. You guys were like, hey, just make this. We're doing this video. I said, all right, cool, let's do this video. I don't even know what it's for. But that ended up being the beginning of something great.
Yeah.
Of something that has turned, how many months is it now? 10, 11? No, since March.
This week will be our 40th Sunday class.
40th Sunday class.
But in total, we've done about 350 cooking classes.
Yeah.
In the past 9 months.
Yeah. And, since then, I've watched your business grow. You've outgrown this space into the loading dock place you were at for a little while. And then now you own a straight noodle house.
Yeah.
Well, it used to be a noodle house. But it's a big-ass factory. I couldn't be more proud of you, man, and Tyler. So you're doing these videos. We're doing these videos. I come in sometimes. You're doing them. And you're great behind the camera, man. You got presence. And Tyler, I think, also found some presence, even though he's
does
he's
great.
A little shy, but he does awesome. What was the growth of that program? Like, how did you see, like, you do this class for the Battery, and then after that, what happens in your brain, and what's, like, the next steps?
So, it kind of goes back to, like, the promises you make to yourself, So, like, when we first started this business, our goal was to make it worth $10 million by the end of 2020.
Yeah.
Right? And I have to say, just watching my dad build a business, like, I like business, and every time I would run the scenarios through my head with the products and the fresh truffles, I felt one day we could get to $10 million total revenue, right? And so $10 million for most companies in this area in Silicon Valley is nothing, right? It's an unbelievable amount of money to chefs. To these guys, it's nothing. And so it's never a business that anyone's going to try to acquire. And so the reason I'm saying that is because when we did that first cooking class, right, kind of two things happened. One was we did that, we were just going for it, right? And when that thing first hit the website, we completely sold out of truffles, completely sold out of the experience. We really had no idea what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. We didn't prep anything. Like, that's how much we literally didn't want to spend the money to prep anything because we didn't know if we would sell anything.
Yeah.
And so, as you remember, when we did that first class, it was on Facebook Live, so you couldn't see people cooking.
Yeah.
But then we got to the end of it, and all these people started tagging us. And we're getting hundreds of tags in. By the end of that day, over 1,000 people had watched that video.
Yeah.
And when we saw people tagging the dishes that they cooked at home, Michelin quality truffle risotto with fresh truffles on it, seeing how happy it made people, right? And then also seeing, it was the first time where I like thought about the business and I was like,